I'm Krista, 72, standing on the shore of coastal Maine. Watching the waves crash against the rocks, I feel a sense of peace that I haven't felt in years. The crisp air carries the scent of salt and pine, and the stars are beginning to appear in the darkening sky. It's been 3 months since I left my old life behind, and I've never been happier. But it wasn't always like this. 3 months ago, I was at my granddaughter Lily's wedding, hoping to bridge the growing distance between us. I'd spent 3 hours getting ready, carefully putting on my pale blue dress that I'd saved for special occasions. I was excited to see my family, especially Lily, who I'd raised for a while when my son Ryan was going through a tough time. When I arrived at the hotel, the wedding coordinator gave me a name tag that read, "The Absent Old Lady." I was shocked and hurt, but I tried to convince myself it was a mistake. As I made my way to my seat, I noticed that I was placed far back in the corner, behind a large floral arrangement that blocked my view of the altar. I felt like an outsider, even though I was the grandmother of the bride. Throughout the ceremony, I strained to see past the flowers. When Lily and her husband exchanged vows, I could only catch glimpses of their profiles. At the reception, I discovered that my table assignment was equally telling. I was seated at the furthest table from the bridal party, surrounded by distant acquaintances. When I tried to give Lily my gift, she barely acknowledged me. She was more interested in starting the dance than in talking to me. That's when I noticed the wedding planner's checklist, which specified that I should have isolated seating and minimal interaction. I realized that this wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. I was devastated. All these years, I'd made excuses for my family, telling myself that they were just busy. But in that moment, something inside me snapped. I found a quiet corner and tried to gather my composure. Memories of all the sacrifices I'd made for my family came flooding back. I remembered when Ryan's father died of a heart attack when he was just 15. I'd worked 2 jobs to raise him and send him to college. And when Ryan had Lily, I'd been there for her, teaching her to paint and read, and nurturing her artistic talent. But then Ryan remarried a woman named Victoria, who came from a wealthy family. Suddenly, my simple ways weren't good enough for them. Lily's visits became less frequent, and eventually, they stopped altogether, except for obligatory holiday appearances. When I was 68, Ryan asked me to sell my house to help pay for Lily's tuition at a prestigious art school. He said it was an investment in her future, and I believed him. I sold my house and moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. But I soon realized that the money had been misused. Ryan and Victoria had bought Lily and her husband a condo, and they were struggling to pay for the wedding. That's when I decided to take action. I met an old acquaintance, George, who worked as a chauffeur at the wedding. He offered to drive me home, and on the way, I found out that Ryan and Lily were responsible for the final payment of the wedding. I asked George to help me change the payment arrangements, and he agreed. The next morning, I woke up to a storm of angry voicemails from Ryan, Victoria, and Lily. They were furious that I'd canceled the complimentary contribution and made them pay the entire bill. But I didn't care. I'd finally stood up for myself. A few days later, I received a call from the bank. Ryan had tried to access my safety deposit box with a forged power of attorney. I went to the bank and confronted him. He tried to make excuses, but I saw through his lies. I realized that he'd been trying to take advantage of me for years. I decided to leave town and stay with my old friend Helen in Maine. She'd invited me countless times, but I'd always declined, worried about being away in case my family needed me. But now I knew that I needed to take care of myself. When I arrived in Maine, Helen welcomed me with open arms. She listened to my story and offered me a place to stay. She also told me about a local art center that was looking for a watercolor teacher. I was hesitant at first, but I decided to give it a try. I've been teaching at the art center for a few months now, and I love it. The students are eager to learn, and I feel like I'm making a difference. I've also made new friends and found a sense of community. But just when I thought my life was finally getting back on track, I found out that Ryan had sold my parents' old summer cottage without my permission. It was another act of betrayal, but this time, I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I hired an attorney, Patricia, who specialized in elder law. She helped me fight back against Ryan and his wife. We sent them a cease and desist letter, demanding that they return the cottage to me. In the end, they backed down. The cottage was returned to my name, but I knew that our relationship would never be the same. I realized that the family I'd been mourning never actually existed. I'd been grieving a fantasy, not a reality. That's why I'm here now, on the shore of Maine, watching the waves. I've finally found the courage to choose myself. I'm free from the expectations and the pain of my past. And I'm looking forward to the future, a future where I matter.